I don't understand this. At the time that the McCain's daughter, little Madeleine, disappeared, she disappeared on May the 3rd, 2007. Both of them McCain's, the husband and the wife, were 39 years old. They were born in 1968. They're originally from England. Please don't tell me that there's no crime in England, okay? Because there is crime in England. How can you be so trusting? And I know they've been beaten down to death concerning this whole case, but how can you be that damn naive that you would leave a 3-year-old and a set of twins inside of an apartment, and you're dining with some friends, some educated friends? Your friends are educated, you're educated, you're dining with some friends. You guys are doctors. You're dining with some friends 160 feet away, and you're periodically checking on the children every 30 minutes. Y'all taking turns checking on your children. From what I understand, everybody was a damn doctor. So you weren't a bunch of dum-dums. Why the hell would you leave these children? And not only did they leave their children, but guess what? Their friends left their children inside the hotels, and they were periodically checking on the kids. That makes no sense at all. You guys got money. You could have hired one babysitter for all them damn kids. You guys have money. That makes no sense. That was being very careless. And I know if you could rewind the hands of time, which you sure can't, I know you wouldn't have done that. But guys, who does that? You leaving your kids in Portugal, in a foreign country, a country that's foreign to you, and you leaving your kids inside of a hotel in a country, I don't know if you've ever been there before, but you still don't know the country. You're there visiting. And you leave little Madeleine and her two siblings inside the hotel, checking on them periodically. Okay? And so from what I understand, there were 8 adults and 7 kids. So you got 8 educated adults who thought it was cool to leave these 7 children inside of this hotel and check on them periodically. They were 160 feet away from the kids. This is crazy. This is crazy. Who thought of this idea? You could have left one of the adults at the hotel for 30 minutes and let them watch the kids, and you could have rotated that out. Or guess what? Hire a nanny. I'm sure it's not that expensive to hire a nanny out there in Portugal. You could have did that. Y'all are not strapped for cash. All 8 of y'all were doctors, from what I understand. Who does this? This is crazy. Who does this? Instead of leaving these kids alone for 30 minutes at a time. A lot can happen in 30 minutes. You got patio doors. You got all kind of stuff going on in this hotel. It was not safe. And as you can see, it's not safe. This little girl, as of today, she would have been 22 years old. She disappeared roughly around her 3rd going on 4th birthday. Who does that? Nobody does that.
They hate you.
Thank you for watching Why I Killed You TV. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this particular video on this particular YouTube channel. I would greatly appreciate it. So we're going to be talking about the Madeleine McCann case. Those of you who are not familiar with the case, I'm going to bring you up to speed. This is the Madeleine McCann documentary. Explore with us true crime news, facts the media ignore. That's what we'll be talking about today. And we're going to be talking about, this version is really going to be focused on what the media ignored, these details that raise some very important questions and challenge the official story, and might help explain why this case, as of today, is still not solved. It's been over 2 decades, and it has haunted not only people over there in England, not only people over there in Portugal, but people here in the United States as well, because people are so bewildered as to how this can happen. Like I said, you got 8 educated people with 7 kids who come up with this idea to leave these kids in this hotel and check on them periodically, and then all of a sudden y'all bewildered because Madeleine is missing? Oh my God, are y'all serious? Okay, so this happened May the 3rd of 2007, so she has been gone for quite some time. Her disappearance, it was sudden. It was shocking to everybody. Her parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, they were doctors from the UK. That night, they decided to go dining, and wherever they were dining at, guys, it was only 160 feet away from the hotel where they left the kids at. So maybe that was their thinking. Oh, it's only 160 feet. Guys, bull crap. That should have never happened. Y'all should have been taking turns watching these kids. Madeleine was left with her two twin younger siblings. They slept alone in apartment 5A. First of all, the balcony alone, I would have been like, nope, I'm not leaving my kids here. Where they were staying had a nice little balcony. Anybody can climb over there, okay, and get into the room, and that's probably what happened. So, like I said, they were taking turns checking on the kids every 30 minutes. They were 160 feet away from the hotel. Not only would they check on their own kids, but they would check on all the kids. It was 7 kids in total. So roughly when it was Kate's turn to check on the kids, it was roughly about 10 p.m. This is when she noticed that little Madeleine was missing. After that, guys, it was all in the news. The story just exploded from that point immediately, and it painted a picture of a possible kidnapping in what was supposed to be a peaceful resort town. But some of the most critical clues were left out of the headlines, or either they were dismissed altogether. So one of the first things that didn't get enough attention was the actual physical evidence inside the apartment. There was no signs of any forced entry. In the beginning, people were saying something was going on with the shutters, like the shutters looked like they were broken, but later on they found out nothing was wrong with the shutters whatsoever. The window, however, was open, but when they checked out the window ledge, there was no fingerprints whatsoever. The little dirt that was on the window ledge, guys, it was not disturbed whatsoever. So that dismissed the possibility that maybe somebody came in through the window and abducted Madeleine. Instead of digging into this problem, most media outlets focused on the image of a break-in, reinforcing the idea that a stranger might have kidnapped Madeleine when there was no signs of anybody forcefully coming into the apartment. So another thing that was ignored was the behavior of the McCanns. Reporters were saying that the McCanns, in the hours and the days after Madeleine disappeared, that they were acting very strange. They were acting distraught. Yeah, their daughter is missing. I would be acting distraught. They said they were acting desperate. Yeah, their daughter is missing. I would be acting desperate as well. But a strange thing that happened, and this is bewildering to me, that Kate and Jerry were allowed to still live in the apartment the next day after little Madeleine disappeared. And another weird thing that was allowed to happen, I don't know if Kate and Jerry actually cleaned the apartment or housekeeping came and cleaned the apartment. The apartment was allowed to be clean. That is weird. So, of course, that destroyed a lot of potential evidence. Another thing that was very strange, Kate admitted to washing Madeleine's little stuffed animal, her cuddle cat. Of course, by her doing that, guess what? That washed away a lot of evidence. Okay, we no longer could get any DNA or any fingerprints from that cuddle cat, because guess what Kate did? She washed that little stuffed animal. Okay, so that removed any possibility of any fingerprints or any DNA you can get from that cuddle cat. So let's talk about the cadaver dogs. This is another thing that was ignored. So the cadaver dogs, when they were let into the apartment, they were alerted to the scent of blood and human decomposition within the apartment, especially behind the couch and in the tiles of the floor and in the rental car that the McCanns later rented a week later. Now, a week later now, after little Madeleine went missing. These findings were not widely reported to the English-speaking press, and the cadaver dogs' reactions were downplayed or either ignored. So another thing that was ignored is that the McCanns refused to take a lie detector test. They later would admit that the reason why they didn't take the lie detector test is because of some legal advice that was given to them. That's the reason why they didn't take the lie detector test. Because they didn't take the lie detector test, guys, that added some more public suspicion onto the McCanns. At the same time they were refusing to take the lie detector test, a media campaign began to run to protect the family's image. British newspapers ran some sympathetic stories concerning the McCanns, and some celebrity spokespeople actually came forward in honor of the McCanns. The McCanns also hired a public relations team. See, that's what I don't understand. You were able to hire let me get this straight. You were able to hire a public relations team, but you couldn't hire a freaking babysitter? Are you serious? And so the Portuguese investigators who originally were treating the parents as suspects were accused of corruption and incompetency. So eventually the Kate and Jerry were their only suspects in Portugal. That was actually lifted. But that is just so funny to me that you were able to hire a public relations team, but you could not afford a babysitter to watch your kids for a couple of hours while you were out eating. That's crazy to me. Another thing that was ignored was the issue with the timeline with the friends that actually came there with the McCanns. I told you that the McCanns actually came there with some doctor friends. They are calling them the Tapas 7. Everybody took turns going to check on the kids during dinner, but their statements are so inconsistent. Some are saying that the apartment door was wide open, and some are saying that the apartment door was slightly ajar. However, there are some questions regarding when the last time somebody actually saw Madeleine after a certain time that evening. Nobody can really say. So there's a lot of contradictions in their statements. Instead, the press decided to focus on some kind of outside suspect, some kind of man that was found carrying a small child in the middle of the night on that particular night that Madeleine went missing. Nobody's really concentrating on what the Tapas 7 were saying and their inconsistencies in their statements. Then came the involvement of private investigators. The McCanns raised money through public funds to search for Madeleine. They wanted their daughter back. They hired several agencies over the years. One of those groups was led by Kevin Halligan, who turned out to be a big con man. They're not talking about this in the media. This is being ignored totally in the media. He spent money on luxurious items and he failed to deliver any results. The scandal barely made any waves in public mainstream, even though it wasted a lot of time, it wasted a lot of money, and it wasted a lot of energy in the investigation. The fund keeps operating and more private investigators were later hired. But this too is being ignored in the media. Another thing that's very weird in this case, and it's being ignored, is that an Irish family actually came forward. The last name is the Smiths, and they claimed to have seen a man carrying a blonde child at night. And they later said that it looked like that it was Jerry McCann. Their report wasn't ever followed up on aggressively in the press, even though it came from an independent witness who had nothing to gain. Their description also didn't match the widely shared sketch of a different suspect based on another couple's sighting. That sketch, sometimes called the E-fit, was strangely buried for years. Some say it resembled somebody that looked close to the family. When it was finally released, the person pushed it forward and it was removed from the investigation team. That is another weird thing in this particular case. As the years went on, the story became more about maintaining an image than finding out the truth. Kate McCann, she actually wrote a book. The family gave several interviews, and there was also a Netflix documentary that was also released. But even then, many of the questions that were raised by the investigators, the dog handlers, the Portugal police weren't really fully explored in depth. It's like the public only wanted to know one side of the story, the version that painted the parents as the victims and the outsiders as the only suspects. There's also the fact that Madeleine's medical history and her records were never fully released. Rumors about sedation or possible health issues were dismissed as speculations. The possibility that something went wrong or something was covered up, either intentionally or out of panic, was always treated like a fringe theory, even though some police and forensic experts support it privately. To this day, there's still no solid proof of what happened to little Madeleine McCann. Nobody has ever been found, nobody has ever been charged, and the people who ask the hard questions are often criticized or ignored.
They hate you. You're gonna die. I don't want to do this.